Hello everybody, this is FPL The Onion episode 10. This is me, Ash, and we're recording on Tuesday night in the middle of an international break, so a bit of time to do something a bit different. We've got a special guest on and we've already got a bit of technical issues. First I'll come to Nick, represented by that pink N in a circle. How's it going, Nick?
Very good, thanks, Mr. Schlee. I did notice that my video has already dropped out. So if we're having some technical issues because of internet and other things, I might just tell Schlee just to cut my video or to put up the constant picture of me. We should just put that in there, Schlee, the photo.
The Tink picture, yeah.
But yeah, I just wanted to introduce my good friend of many years, Mr. Richard Bowden, who joins us as our guest tonight. And I've been wanting to get Rich on for a while because he plays the game very differently from myself and Schlee, in that he is what some people would describe, I guess, in the community as more of a casual manager, and he likes to make his decisions. Well, we can talk about how he makes his decisions, but he doesn't put as much time into it as Schlee and I do. And so it'll be interesting to get his perspective on football generally, on FPL, on how he plays the game, on what he thinks of me and Schlee and how mad we are about it. But yeah, we are struggling with the video. But Rich, yeah, welcome to the pod.
Thank you, Nick. Thank you, Schlee. Really happy to be here. Thank you for inviting me on. Big fan of the pod. Big friend of the pod. So looking forward to getting stuck in.
Friend of the pod. Yeah, so I mean, as we say, we are struggling with the video, so maybe this will be a classic podcast, in that it'll probably mainly be our voices and Schlee's reactions to what we're saying. But yeah, Rich, do you just want to kind of tell us a little bit about how you play FPL and kind of how you make your decisions?
Yeah, so I think it's fair to say, I think your description of me is fairly accurate. I'm pretty casual, although I would say before this season, I was incredibly casual. So I didn't even know what. I mean, I think this is only the second season I've done it, maybe the third, and I didn't know what I didn't know what a free hit was last season. I didn't know what the wild card was. I didn't know. Double game week kept catching me out. I didn't know when that was coming up. Often used to forget to do my transfers. But this season I've attempted to move up a notch. So I do take it a little bit more seriously. Like you said, I don't spend lots of time on it. Often do what I need to do the day before.
Yeah.
I kind of peruse quite a bit on a little bit. I Google a couple of things, tips for the game week,
yeah,
that sort of thing. But I don't go into detail, and also just kind of try and check out what others have done and what others are doing. And then I think the last thing is that I probably have a slight bias towards Villa. I'm a Villa fan, which maybe affects my decisions slightly.
Yeah, very familiar with that. Although, as we'll probably get to later on, I think I've stopped being a classic football fan and became much more about FPL and how that's going. But yeah, just picking up on some of the things that you said there. So when was the first season you played? Did you play last season, and that was your first season?
I think so. It's a bit of a blur because of the pandemic, but I think it was.
I think so. I think that's right, Rich. I did a bit.
Season.
Yeah,
I feel like you may have missed last season though, because I feel like you played one season and you were like, actually, I can't be bothered with this, and then I think you didn't play a season, and then we've managed to convince you to come back and join that league again.
Is that right? No, I definitely played last season.
Okay.
It's just I can't remember if I played the season before, but
okay.
Yeah, I think it's probably only my second season. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I think that's right. I did a bit of stalking before, and you played one season before, and I think
there you go.
2.1 mil or something overall rank. So yeah, it's about right from the description.
And what are you this season in rank?
1.6.
No
1.6.
Yeah, we'll get to that in a moment.
Yeah. So that's a massive improvement. 600,000 that's huge. 500,000 places at this point. But yeah, and then in terms of, you said like kind of the day before, how do you even know when there is a deadline? How do you kind of keep on top of that?
Because for about 10 years, I've been with some mates from uni. I do a predictions thing each week. So we predict the fixtures each week. So I know from that. And then we've also started doing or in fact, last season we started doing a mini league amongst us.
Right.
So that, to be honest, that reminds me more than anything.
I thought you were saying that reminds me I've got to do my predictions this week. But you, how do you do in that predictions league?
I am bottom. But I mean, it's predictions. It's kind of based on luck a little bit. I think I won it last season or the season before, so that, you know, it's a bit of luck, really.
Yeah, it's interesting because there's a lot of people now, and it's weird how, I guess I have kind of done this, but I think more so this season is that you look at the fixtures and think, how, you know, who do you think is going to do best in that fixture? And, you know, rather than just I'm going to pick players who do well, is almost looking week to week and thinking, right, who's got a really good fixture, and what do I think? You know, you think it's Chelsea v Norwich. I think it's going to be 4-0 Chelsea, and therefore it's going to mean clean sheets and goals and assists and everything else. But it's weird how I think I'd been doing that, but just kind of almost subconsciously doing it. But yeah, I think if you are really good at predicting what's going to happen, then generally you should be better at FPL, I think. So,
well, I mean, with the predictions, it's often about being conservative. So not going to, because more likely than not, a game will be, I think, you probably tell me otherwise, but a result will often be a 1-0, a 0-0, a 2-0, or a 1-1 or something like that, rather than always thinking it's going to be like 5-1 or something.
Yeah. And that should make you a more conservative FPL manager, because you're probably right. That is much more likely to happen. But often, actually, we'll look at something and say, that's going to be 5-0. Like, let's pile in on those teams. And often it's not. So.
And Rich, one thing you were saying, which was interesting, you were saying that before a game you might Google something to try and get some tips. Like, what sort of stuff are you putting into Google there, and what sort of stuff comes back?
I just put, well, so I do look at the BBC FPL blog thing. Alistair Bruce Ball, is it? Does it?
And Chris Sutton is that doesn't seem to like fancy football from what I can gather, and always whinges about it.
So look, I read that. That's got some tips, and then I just Google week 28, week 29.
Yeah.
Tips.
And you get kind of what's happening to a pregnant lady in week 29.
But what do you get back there? Like YouTube channels or
No,
websites?
just articles. Like the Guardian. I think the Guardian have one.
Okay.
Or some others, and just the odd article saying top tips for this week, and that, to be honest, it probably then explains the fact that you got a double game week this week and then might not have the next week or whatever. It's that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Not stats based.
So have you ever tried to watch like a YouTube video about it, and did it just bore the hell out of you and you just thought, what am I doing watching this?
No. Other than your podcast,
which you've watched religiously every single episode 3 times.
Yeah. Like I said, big fan of the pod.
Big fan of the pod. So what do you think about people like me and Schlee? I know, because we're in a WhatsApp group together, so we do get the odd message where we're kind of, it doesn't take too much to read between the lines, but you can let it all out here, Rich. Don't pull any punches on this.
So I guess I don't understand. This is what it boils down to. I don't understand how you would choose fantasy football over your football team.
Yeah,
I guess that's what it boils down to. I mean, when you asked me a few questions, Nick, to prepare, and I thought about what I enjoy, what I don't enjoy. We might come to that. But in terms of what I don't enjoy, that's definitely the thing I don't enjoy the most.
Yeah,
is the idea that you would ever support an opposing player to your own team scoring because you have them in your team.
Yeah,
because that for me loses the essence of football.
Yeah. No, and that's fair, and that's certainly something that I've kind of not. I don't think I wouldn't say I've wrestled with it, but certainly this season when a lot of people were captaining Havertz, I think against Norwich, and I captained Salah against Man United, mainly because as a Man United fan, I was like, United are terrible at the moment. We're an absolute basket case. Salah's one of the best players in the world, if not the best player in the world. So the chances are he's going to batter us, and he did. And I wouldn't say I celebrated his goals, but I certainly felt pretty good about them because I knew that a lot of people hadn't captained him. And I think if United were going for the title, if they were like top of the league at that time, I would have been pretty gutted, and maybe it would have made me make a different decision that week. But because United are not in the hunt for trophies, the odd game here and there, like I enjoy it when United win, and I would have enjoyed it if they'd beaten Liverpool in that game, but they're not even close. So the fact that they lose to Liverpool isn't that devastating. It's certainly not as devastating as it used to be when we were in the hunt for titles. So I do get what you're saying. I'm certainly not as kind of diehard a United fan as I was. Maybe that shows I never really was, but that's a conversation for another podcast.
And what was the story about you celebrating in Sainsbury's?
Yeah, that's when I messaged Rich and Shirley about this earlier, that when I realized that I was completely mad about fantasy football and probably cared a lot more about my fantasy football team than United, and how United got on, was I just remember being in Sainsbury's in Balham when we lived in London, and just seeing that. I think I was either listening to Radio 5 live on my phone whilst doing the weekly shop, or it even just flashed up as a goal alert. But I think Steve Cooper scored for Bournemouth. So it shows how long ago this was. And I remember that I'd researched, Bournemouth coming up. I think it was their first season back in the Premiership or in the Premiership. And he had scored a few goals from defence, or, on corners, and he scored headed goals. And I brought him in it was almost like mid-season, but he scored a goal. And I think he got a clean sheet. And I just remember going absolutely mad in Sainsbury's in the crisp aisle, almost did a knee slide in the crisp aisle. And so that's the way that's the way I probably celebrated when Solskjaer scored the winning goal in the Champions League final. So I was like, yeah, I probably like fantasy football more than my actual club nowadays.
I do find with good FPL memories, you really do remember exactly where you were, or maybe actually bad ones. I think I maybe remember the worst ones more, but it's funny how vivid memories of the location comes into it.
Come on, Shlee, give us your worst one ever.
I can't remember big details of the FPL side of it, but I remember driving home to Devon to see my parents in a van that we'd hired to go and get 2 cupboards that they were getting rid of that we were going to bring back to Hampshire where we live. And I can't remember if I had Aguero or didn't have him, but I certainly didn't captain him. And I think it was versus Newcastle. I want to say they won 5-1, and I think he scored a hat-trick in the first half. And I was driving the whole way home listening to Fired Live and listening to it unfold. And it was awful. And I remember getting to my mum and dad's hometown, and they said, "Oh, how's the drive? How's it going?" And I arrived, and I basically just immediately opened up to them. I was really pissed off about FPL, and Aguero had ruined my day. And they were like, "We don't care."
Yeah, I mean, it takes me back actually to that pod a couple of weeks ago where we were having technical issues, and you were in a deep, dark FPL hole, and my audio cut out, or I think I completely dropped off the call, and you were just talking to yourself about how you'd told your workmate that you had a bad weekend. And he was like, FPL ruins your weekend. Like, what's wrong with you?
I know, fancy football affects you that much. Whatever. Anyway, let's go and talk about that project.
I think is that how you feel about it, Rich? When you hear that, like, if you hear that Rich is, that Shlee's upset about his weekend, you're just like, how can you be that upset about it?
I do sympathise in a way, because I don't, not bothering me so much at the moment, but when Villa used to lose, it did ruin the rest of my day. So I can understand when you're really passionate about something that would affect you, but I can't personally think that will ever happen to me, that I will be bothered.
It's funny though, isn't it?
Wait for like a second or a minute, and then that'll be it. I'll move on.
Yeah, it's so funny though, because when we've met up and you've kind of told me about, you've said, "Oh, last weekend I was miserable because this happened with Villa, etc." And we'll talk about it because we like football. But that almost now seems as arbitrary to me as, if Villa were getting relegated because of a result, I could understand it. But if you're kind of just mid-table or surviving, or whatever, you've changed your manager, you're doing better, you're doing worse. Just the fact that can, I mean, I know I completely understand it because it's how I used to feel, but that's almost now as arbitrary to me as being upset about fantasy football. So
no, I'm with you, and I agree with you. So that's what I'm saying. At the moment, I don't get that bothered, but I think, especially like 2 years ago when we were flirting with relegation, it's when you have something to fight for. So it's exactly. when you're playing for something, and actually then a loss actually might mean you might get relegated. At the end, I'll be gutted. or if we were in a slightly higher position and fighting for Europe, I'd probably be more gutted. Or Villa are playing Man United.
Yeah. You've always tried to convince me that you like Man United, but whenever we play you reserve this special kind of vitriol for United. But and then afterwards, you're like, yeah, but I've always loved United. But it's a weird thing in sport, isn't it? Because every year everyone's rushing to compete, to do really well, to win the trophies, whatever. It could be F1, it could be Six Nations, it could be the Premier League, the Champions League, whatever. And then somebody wins, they pick up the trophy, we all go away for a few months, and we come back and it all starts again. And so it's all pretty arbitrary. But I mean, I'm doing pretty well in fantasy football this season, but at some point the season's going to end and then it's going to start again, and there's going to be 10 million players again, and it'll all start again. So it's just these things that we get obsessed about, but they do seem quite arbitrary when you kind of step back from them a bit.
So Rich, where's the line for you? If Villa were playing end of season in a mid-table, nothing to win, nothing to lose game, you're winning 1-0, and the opponent who you've got on your team scores, are you on balance more gutted or more pleased?
Well, so this is what I was referring to at the start of my bias. So I would probably not pick, or certainly wouldn't rely too heavily on a team that was playing Villa.
Right. So you might actually bench them so that you wouldn't have that mental decision.
Yeah, but also because I want Villa to win. Mm-hmm. So I want Villa to win, so I don't want to pick the player thinking that they might do well against Villa. But that doesn't really make much sense. But where would I draw the line? If literally we're last game of the season, and whether we won, lost, or drew didn't make any difference to our league position, I would probably be quite happy with my FPL.
Okay.
Even if you were in,
I say that I don't know. I'm in two minds.
I don't think you would be. I mean, it depends on what's riding on it, right? Because if nothing was riding on FPL either, if you hadn't made a transfer for 6 weeks and you didn't even know what your rank was, you didn't even know that player who was playing Villa was even in your team, you wouldn't care, would you? But if you were like top 10k and you'd been having a really good season and you've followed all the tips that me and Schlee are going to give you tonight, and it's all going brilliantly, and you're winning all your cash leagues, then you'd be delighted, wouldn't you? You'd be knee sliding in the Sainsbury's crisp aisle.
I guess you're right. I mean, overall big picture, I'm not playing for anything, but I am in, obviously, which I'm sure we'll come to, in mini leagues where I want to win week on week. So how we do it in the one week, again, in the mini league I'm in with uni friends, is whoever gets the most points in 1 week will get a certain amount of money.
Oh, nice.
So we'll all put money in, and then you divide it based on how many points you get. So in that league, in terms of the money, I have something to pay for each week.
Is it a 10 grand buy-in?
Yeah, that's it. That's the one. High stakes.
You'd still rather Villa win.
Considering my job, I probably wouldn't ever be able to say that, even if it was true. So I work on gambling addiction for the Department for Health.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, I shouldn't joke about it then. I will say though that our very good mutual friend Mark is a absolutely massive Liverpool fan, and he hates Man United with a passion. And he has never ever, to his knowledge or to ours, ever owned a Man United player in his fantasy football team because he hates them so much. He refuses to have them. So actually, last season when United did pretty well, he didn't do very well in fantasy because he just absolutely refused to own any of their assets at any point. It's pretty funny. But
that's a different way of playing, Rich. I'm not sure I've ever heard someone saying that they would bench anyone when they're playing Villa. I like all that eggs in one basket though. You're going to have, you're kind of protecting yourself, aren't you?
I think it's more that if I was making a transfer and I was trying to decide who to bring in, I wouldn't bring in a West Ham player if they were playing Villa.
Yeah, okay.
So if you looked at the fixtures and saw that they had Villa in the next 5, would you bring them in?
Well, no, this is the difference. I don't look further ahead than the next week.
It's one game at a time. Yeah. In fact, Rich, at this point, I am going to ask you to tell us about a couple of because I think you've mentioned them to me a couple of times when we've met up, and I've obviously brought up fantasy football because I just want to chat about it all the time. And was there one week where you brought a player in for an injured player and then realised that player was injured or something, or didn't have a fixture or something? There was one brilliant one.
I can't remember if I'm honest, but I mean, I brought Ramsdale in this week and he was injured straight off the bat. But
that's just unlucky.
That is unlucky. No, yeah, there was a week, I can't remember when it was. It was quite a while back when I brought in. Yeah, I brought in what I've done is a couple of things. Yeah, I brought in a player that's injured, thinking it was a brilliant substitute transfer, and he was injured and out for ages. And then another one. Oh yeah, I brought in Rudiger. I think it was a couple of weeks ago. I brought in Rudiger, and
they had a blank.
It wasn't. They weren't playing with it. It was 2 weeks ago, I think, when they were. The League Cup final.
Oh, this was it, because you said to me, I think we spoke, and you said I brought in Rudiger, and then you were like, and then I realised he doesn't have a fixture, and then you said to me, shall I transfer him out again? And I was like, no, because he's going to play next week, and they've got good fixtures now. Or I think I said he's got a double game week next week, and you were like, oh, okay, but you may, if we hadn't spoken, you may have just transferred him straight out again. But yeah, it's these are things.
I have done a few of those.
Yeah, but this
look great. I'll bring them in, and then they're not playing, are they? So they're not.
But there's everything on a spectrum with these things, where obviously you're trying to make decisions based on information, and Schlee and I have a lot of. There are people who are, go much more in depth than even me or Schlee on this stuff. They'll look at like, right, Weghorst is playing against, I don't know, Norwich and Palace, and they'll look at how many goals Norwich and Palace have conceded from corners, from headers, because Weghorst is, good because he's a big guy, he must be good in the air, and they're looking at things like that. How many goals have they conceded down the left side because they've got, Son playing against that team or whatever, and it's just people are going. This is the thing now. We listen to Luke Disable's kind of quick 11, 12-minute podcast on this today, how there's just so much information out there now. And so back 10 years ago when people were playing this game, there wasn't that much information. And so people were obviously doing a lot of their own research. Whereas now you can literally go as deep as you want to go into it. And yet there are still people playing it exactly the way you are, Rich, where they're looking at it each week going, right, it's Friday afternoon. I've got one free transfer. Who's not playing Villa this week? And then you bring somebody in, right? So it's information, isn't it? And if you're not getting that information from good sources or whatever else, or you're not finding that information, then you're going to make some decisions where it's like, oh, okay, that guy's injured, or that guy's not got a fixture this week, or whatever else. But so how do you follow football generally? Do you still go and watch Villa quite a bit?
No, I haven't been since pre-pandemic. Well, actually, the last game I went to was the League Cup final against Man City, which was about 2 years ago.
Yeah.
I haven't been since then because of the pandemic, but also because kids, family commitments, and living down in Kent. So it's a bit more difficult. I do really want to go. But I watch I've pretty much watched every single Villa game for last 4 years.
Yeah.
I it's the one thing I sort of prioritise. Aside from my family and kids, it's the second thing I prioritise is on a weekend is watching Villa.
Yeah, Schlee was telling us a few pods ago that he even when he's at the swimming pool with his young child who presumably can't do backstroke and front crawl and breaststroke and everything, that he was researching his fantasy football team whilst looking after his kid in the pool. So we all have our priorities.
Yeah, I'm not sure about admitting that one, Schlee.
I know, yeah. Someone did ask me, I can't remember if it was Nick or Ali or something. It's like, were you in the pool at the time?
with your phone? Snuck your phone in.
Just grabbing it off the side of the pool and putting that higher up the agenda. No, I was just watching and Kat was in the pool. But yeah,
I might have to.
Half an hour, it's absolute gold.
I might have to edit one of those, that meme where there's the kid in the pool that the mum's holding up and the other kid's like slowly drowning behind them. I might have to edit that one up, put it on our Twitter.
Yeah, it's one of the Twitter favourites, isn't it, for fantasy football? Should we?
Okay, bit of general stuff, Rich. Before we move on, there you go. It's the fantastic pun. We should have put that up a while ago. I love it. That was Rich's pun that he stumbled upon today, but we loved it. What's your best footballing memory, Rich?
Oof. I think probably. So I used to have a season ticket down the Villa when I was a teenager, and we beat Atletico. We were in the UEFA Cup, and we beat Atletico Madrid 2-1. I think it was 2-1. It was 1-0. I can't remember. But
Was that when you had like John Carew and people like that?
No. It was it was before that.
Oh, really?
It was like early. It was mid-90s. So it was sort of
Ian Taylor,
Lee Hendry,
Savo.
Savo, maybe even Stan Collymore actually was playing.
Big Stan.
So maybe it was more like 98, and we beat Atletico Madrid, I think 2-1. But kind of those sort of it was an evening game at Villa Park, but evening games at Villa Park during that period.
Under the lights
were, and we're in Europe, which hasn't happened for a long time, was, those sort of games. But I also went to the 96 League Cup final.
I don't think we don't want to talk about that, do we?
No.
Didn't you beat United in the 96 one, or was that 94?
No, that was 94. We beat Leeds 3-0.
All right, we can talk all about that then, that's fine.
Savo Milosevic scored 25-yard screamer in his left foot.
I think I remember that game.
It's pretty much one of the only good things he did. But that. So what over those kind of night games or the League Cup final, I would say.
Favorite player of all time? Savo.
No, not Savo. Although, I mean, the chant for Savo whenever he screamed it. Whenever I remember at school, actually, whenever anyone screamed it over the bar or hit something really wide, Savo, because he had a kind of tendency to smash the ball wide or really high. Favorite player was probably when I was younger was Dwight York. Probably.
Yeah. When he was at Man United.
No, I hated him. Dwight York or Paul McGrath, and most recently Jack Grealish.
I think we should say that if your firstborn child had been a boy, you were going to call him Jack, weren't you?
Yeah.
Yeah. Dedication. And then, okay, bring it back to FPL, and then we can move on. Favorite FPL player. What's your?
Wow. So actually, the players I'm most impressed with are real surprising ones. Sorry, Salah.
Yeah.
Salah or Son maybe, or De Bruyne.
Did you have Coutinho for the double game week a few weeks ago, right? He absolutely smashed
it. Got 56 points, I think. I didn't captain.
Oh, did you?
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Wow.
And
there you go. Not such a casual comment.
Did you have any other Villa, Rich? Because a lot of them scored well in that week.
No, I'd just taken Jacob Ramsey out, which is a shame because I think he scored.
Well, he didn't do anything that week because I've had Jacob Ramsey for a long time.
Oh no, I did. I did have him, and I took him out after that. Yeah, and then he scored.
Oh, and then you got like a 10-pointer.
Yeah.
Yeah. You didn't have Matty Cash then in that week? He got like 29 points or something.
No.
That was insane. But yeah, amazing. Well, I don't think I've got any more questions for you, Rich. But so we may want to move on, Shlee. But that was awesome.
Was that Rich?
That was Rich. That was rich material, and that is perfect for this, especially as you're talking about Villa in 1998.
I know, it's such a good throwback,
right?
Isn't it?
Oh, back to the
Football League.
Back to reality. Yeah, what a show. There's Gav Smith in the front row.
That's niche.
It's a very deep cut reference from my childhood there. Hi Gav, if you're watching this. Gav's not watching this. So my game week, I am still reaping the rewards from my -16 that I took last week. So I made 5 transfers in game week 29, and they paid off pretty well that week, and then they've paid off again. And I was just really lucky to still have Son. Kane was obviously one of the players that I brought in for Jimenez, who obviously got quite a few people his -2, which was quite nice. Still haven't owned Rafinha all season and feel pretty pleased about that. It was really interesting listening to Luke's pod again today, where he's talking about variance and just saying that, you know, you could pick 3 of very similar players to another person, and yet your 3 do really well and their 3 do really badly, and there's not really any rhyme nor reason for that. It is just luck. And I have been incredibly lucky this season. You know, a lot of the things that I have done and a lot of the things that I haven't done just have seemed to pay off for no real reason. I mean, you look at Ben White in my defense, brought him in last week for Cancelo. I think he got 8 in one of the games last week, and he kind of kept clean sheet, but he got bonus as well, which is pretty. I think he's had a bit as one of the reasons why I didn't mind getting him in, but he's not going to get attacking returns. And then again, to get another bonus point this week and another clean sheet, that's worked out really well. And when you take Cancelo out, it's rare that that works. But yeah, it's just really, really pleased with it. And it kind of brought my rank back from, I think I was up at like 5k. So to bring it back down again to just over 3k is pretty sweet. And I'm pretty well set up now.
Is that in the world?
That is in the world, Richard. Thank you for asking that question at that moment. That's just the perfect question to ask.
Really? Your 3,000's in the world?
Yeah, he's absolutely smashing
it. It's almost like I've paid you to come on and do and react in this way. Yeah. And again, like some people are like, oh, there are 9 million players. There aren't 9 million players. Did you see Schley, the person who had the top score after the Friday night game, and he triple captained Luke Ayling?
Right. And had he made his team that week?
I think he'd made his team in game week 25 or something. But my theory is, because there are now bots and, you know, there's machine, you know, programming on for all of this sort of stuff, is I think there are people who are setting computers up to build fantasy football teams and, you know, enter them and just randomly select players and that, you know, there's no way there are 9 million active players. There are people just adding hundreds of thousands of teams every week, and they're captaining, you know, triple captaining Luke Ayling.
Yeah.
It's like completely mad.
I would love to know how many are active, though. I'm sure Ragaboli could maybe find out, but I mean, at a guess, what, 1.5 million, 2 mil or something? So still, to be 3.2k is amazing.
But I mean, I'm quite impressed. I'm quite impressed that I'm top 20% then.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Learned a lot already.
I mean, if Schley's right, and actually there are only 2 million active managers, you're not quite top 20.
Well, another stat I just thought of makes me think that's not correct, because another podcast we do like, Rich, is FPL Black Box, and they've done a very good series that I'm kind of jealous of, where they take 2 football fans but new to FPL and mentor them. And one of them, I think, is I don't know, Nick, do you know Natalie Zohar? I think maybe 200k, I want to say.
I think 200k. She started making content on I think it's on Twitter or Instagram or something.
So sorry, I'm not sure she knew much about football, but quite liked FPL basics. But then the other guy who they've got on was a mad football fan but doesn't know FPL that much, and he's about 2 million.
But what's weird about that? I mean, they do mention them every so often, because the 2 guys which you do this podcast, especially one of them is like the OG of fantasy football. He started the website Fantasy Football Scout, and they talk about mentoring these people, but they can't have mentored them very closely, because apparently the guy, and I can never remember his name, but he used all his chips in the first 6 weeks. So I don't think Mark could have been speaking to him very often and saying like, well, maybe don't use your wild card this week.
Sort of fallen away a little bit.
But you're suggesting that
a bit ill, isn't he? So maybe that's the part of the reason. But yeah, I'd quite like to them to revisit that a bit.
Are you suggesting that that's what we do for Rich next season? We mentor him every week.
It has crossed my mind. Maybe Rich, yeah.
Maybe we'll come on to this, but it's all about time commitment, isn't it?
This is true.
Yeah,
so it depends how big your pay leagues are that we can get in on.
Yeah, that we can get in on. Schley's already working out his percentage.
But just back to your team, Nick. I mean, yeah, you talked about variance, and I did tweet this. I mean, the fact that you've got Son and White who outscored Kulu and Ramsdale. You know, similar players, okay, not similar budget, Kulu and Son, but still involved in the 3-1. And, you know, Ramsdale and White in the same position. And that's a 20-point swing. And you've been up on that 20 points. You know, had you not had that and had the players I blimmin' got in that situation, you'd had 43 and it'd been quite a lot of trouble. So,
yeah,
you know, you're obviously pretty unlucky Martinelli didn't play, but you had just the right powerful players in there to cover the walls this week. So it was a great week. Yeah, 63, you know, no free hit.
Yeah.
So 15% of the top 10k played it. So to game rank is pretty cool.
Yeah, and it's and as you say, because I listened to Planet FPL, I listened to all of Planet FPL yesterday, and they were saying, because they both used the free hit, and because Rich, just in the lead up to this week, we were looking at whether we should free hit and what the benefit would be, and obviously, and you look in my team, I've got Trent and Salah and you know, and De Gea and people, you know, I didn't even have a playing goalkeeper, etc., etc. So it's just in approaching this week. I mean, you'll know all this because you listened to last week's pod completely from back to front, but but we were obviously trying to weigh up whether it would be a massive benefit to use the free hit. But the guys on Planet FPL, they got like, I think Suj got like 79 points.
Yeah, 79 for them both, I think, from what they were saying, which is on the high end, I'd say, the free hit.
Yeah,
I think they did have Johnny or
but that is massive. I mean, because I guess the big thing for free hitters was that they would have had a strong bench, and so when all those players, you know, the likes of Rafinha and Martinelli and forget who else was kind of a surprise benching, like Kilman and people like that, they actually had a bench that could come in, and obviously Ramsdale as well. They had players who could come in and play, so that was the big. That wasn't what everybody was expecting, though. I don't think people saw that many strange benchings coming, did they? So
yeah, it was a crazy week. Yeah, maybe James went for Johnny and then Suj copied him, but yeah, I presume they didn't have the same team because both getting the same score at a free hit is pretty coincidental.
Yeah. Just out of interest, why did you not bring Ramsdale in?
Because
it's obviously the right choice, but why did you not bring him in?
I didn't. That's a good question. And the thing is, I absolutely would have brought Ramsdale in if I could have done. The reason why I didn't was because I've got 3 Arsenal players already. So White, Saka, and Martinelli.
Oh, of course.
And so last week when I was looking at it, when I looked at bringing in those 3 Arsenal players, I was thinking, right, this means getting these 3 in means going without Ramsdale next week. So, but that was, again, it's something that worked out really well for me, especially with Ramsdale not playing this week, because he would have got a clean sheet for all his owners, and they're all sat there thinking, oh, yeah, that was great. So, yeah.
Should we move on?
Indeed.
Okay, my week next, we're going in order here. 50, I also rolled. It started off really well on the Friday because I did a bit of technical term, which is bench wankery, and put Aït-Nouri and Harrison and Digne on my bench because I mentally was prepared for them all not playing, because Aït-Nouri was a rotation risk with Marçal. Harrison had been dropped the previous game, and had Rafinha not had COVID, he probably would have been benched as well. And Digne, obviously, whatever's wrong with him, is probably going to be back next week, just a week too late. But when Harrison scored, I was absolutely over the moon and thinking, great start. And then it went pretty downhill from there, with Kulu blanking when Son and Kane banged, Ramsdale not playing. And the rest maybe was kind of as expected, but yeah, not having Son really hurt. So it was, to be fair, it was going really well until that Spurs game, and then yeah, Kane captain great, but no Son was a killer. So I think I dropped about 3,000 places.
I did notice, Shlee, and I forgot to mention this to you, so it'd be interesting to hear your reasoning on it now, but I would never have thought, you know, being the kind of stickler as you are for FPL and kind of playing the game in the right way and everything, when I looked at your bench, and you'd put players who were going to play on the bench, you'd left players who weren't going to play in your team. Is that something that you do? Because I've never, I mean, you know, you're saying bench wankery. I mean, Rich will definitely be familiar with that. He's partaking, but
no, I wouldn't normally do it. But I just saw someone on Twitter saying on Friday, it's supposed to be a fun game, this is one way of making it fun. I was like, yeah, that would actually A, make it a bit more fun, and B, to be honest, yeah, it was a bit of a psychological move, because I knew it would only get a bit better, and I was seriously thinking there's a chance that all of them are going to get 0, and if they're in my team, that would upset me more.
Oh, really? Right. Okay. So there was a bit of kind of emotional protection going on there as well.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, yeah, as I said, Aït-Nouri, he was, he might have been Marçal or whoever coming in for him, and Harrison didn't play the last game, or no, he came on, sorry, then got booked and got 0. So to get 9 from him, I was delighted, but yeah, it could have been 0.
Because some people, again for Rich's benefit, some people get really upset with the bench boost, where obviously all 15 of your players score. And apologies if I'm kind of, teaching you to suck eggs here, Rich. But with the bench boost, what people hate, some people kind of who are, real diehard managers on this game, they hate it when people don't have a genuine bench. So like, oh, my bench boost scored this many points. Whereas, if you've got Salah on your bench and you've got Trent on your bench, then it's not a genuine bench boost, because you would always have that in your first 11. So it's like, what did Ramsey get you? What did Martinelli get you, etc. on your bench? But yeah, I actually quite like the psychological hit that takes, because in your mini leagues, especially when in your cash leagues, and that, you don't even often speak to these people, but that they're chasing you like crazy, or from previous seasons where you're chasing them. And it is quite a psychological hit, where you look at their team and you're like, oh, that team looks crap this week. And then you look down at their bench, they've bench boosted and they've got like absolute mega bench. So it's pretty funny when you notice it.
I've never thought of it actually from an opponent's point of view. That is interesting. Maybe I should consider that.
Yeah, I'm going to definitely do it on my bench boost, because it does make, you don't immediately notice that people have bench boosted, and you look at their team and think, oh, that's easy, I'm going to slaughter that team this week. And then you look at the bench and you're like, oh no, all those big hitters down there. Yeah,
so true. Chris Hosman's doing well in the Southampton league. He's way ahead of me now. Not sure if he's catching you, but he's definitely pulling ahead from me. Annoying.
Is he? Yeah. Hi, Chris, if you're listening.
Hey, Chris.
Look forward to meeting you at some point.
So,
right, Rich.
Quick, how many transfers did you make there?
Me, I rolled as well. So yeah, I went into it with 8 potential players.
Is that what rolled means?
Sorry,
yeah, roll means you didn't use a transfer, which means you get 2 free transfers in the following week, and then you can't roll more than 2. So it's a nice thing to be able to do. It's nice if you can get into a rhythm of saving a free transfer and then making 2 the next week, and then saving and then making 2, because you can make quite big changes to your team. Because, for example, you could take, like, I'm thinking this week of taking Son out. Well, I'm probably not going to do this, but I could take Son out and put Havertz in, but I could also bring James in for Sice. And it's nice to be able to do those things in one go and for no hit. So rolling your transfer is seen as quite a nice little bonus if you can do it. There you go. Look, learning the vernacular there.
Are you aware of that, Rich? Rolling a transfer? Well, maybe not the term, but do you know that if you don't make a move, you
yeah. No, I knew you could, that it rolls over to the next week, but
it would be quite cool. It would be quite cool. I wonder how they decide not to do this, but it'd be quite cool if you could roll unlimited transfers. Imagine just rolling like 4 transfers and then making 4 in 1 week. That'd be awesome.
Well, I think it's backwards on Sky. Don't you only get a set number for the whole season? And so you can make a load in 1 week if you want, but then you don't have any more. It's quite an interesting mechanic.
Yeah.
Right,
Rich, do you want to talk us through this?
Shocker. Not really. Well, so I made 2 trans. Well, I had my 1 free transfer, which was, I think I brought Ramsdale in, and obviously that didn't work out.
For De Gea, wasn't
it? Who did you take out?
Go against everything I said earlier about not picking players who were playing Villa. I was quite confident that Arsenal were going to beat Villa, and they obviously did.
You're coming over to our side of the table, Rich. You're going to start smashing Villa every week with your fantasy football team.
Yeah, I hope not. I hope I don't turn into that. And then, so that was 1. And then Cody as captain was an absolutely disgraceful decision. So
I did see that. I did look at Cody because I thought, I wonder, because I remember when we spoke about this a few weeks ago about Gameweek 30 and about the fact they're going to be blank fixtures, and I think don't think you knew that there weren't going to be that many fixtures in Gameweek 30 at that point. It might have been like Gameweek 26 or something that we were talking about it. But so I did look at your team this week to just see how many players you had. But I did notice the Cody captain. What was the thinking behind that?
2 goals in 2 games.
They were playing Leeds, and I had definitely thought that Wolves would beat Leeds, and would keep a clean sheet because Wolves have been pretty solid at the back. So I thought, I'll take a bit of a risk.
But that's that variance thing again, because variance based just means luck, because I haven't seen the highlights of that game even, and again shows how I'm not an amazing football fan, but I heard that Jimenez's yellow cards, apparently the referee counted, like he almost, that thing where they say kind of persistent fouling. So for his first yellow card, he went like 1, 2, 3, and he was pointing all over the pitch, and he gave me a yellow card. And apparently Jimenez hadn't committed a foul before that one. So that kind of thing, like Jimenez getting sent off for 2 yellows, because apparently the second one was super unlucky as well, with Meslier coming out. So if Jimenez hadn't been sent off, the people, it's much more likely that Wolves would have kept a clean sheet, because they were 2-0 up at the time, I think, when he got sent off. And so, then Cody as captain, he might, maybe he pops up with a goal at the end, and you're suddenly looking like a genius, right? So that's the variance of it. It is mad.
Yeah.
Maybe you didn't want to captain Saka against Villa as well.
No, I definitely should have either done that. Him or Coutinho would probably be a sensible decision in advance, I guess.
But Coutinho's playing Arsenal, so maybe you just thought, I don't like that either.
Because they're owning Ramsdale.
Yeah.
Well,
no, if I was going to have picked another one rather than Cody, it probably would have been Coutinho.
Yeah, fair enough.
But I guess what you were saying earlier, Nick, about that I don't. With that being the main issue is I don't look in advance, so I don't look at future weeks.
Yeah.
So I was kind of quite hamstrung about what I could do.
Yeah.
And I did one article I read online said what most people were doing, and most people were the highest percentage of people were doing making one transfer. So you do your free transfer and then paying. What's it called?
Taking a hit.
Taking a hit. And so the majority of people were taking a hit, and so I thought I'll do that. That was my logic.
Yeah, fair enough.
Your team's good. Like, it just hasn't had a great week, but yes, your defence, I'm well jealous of that. We'll come to it in a bit, but don't think you should be changing that soon.
No, and the forward positions have been a disgrace this season generally anyway. The only one who's worth having even now is Kane, really. I think Ronaldo might come back into the conversation with United having a double and having Norwich, but the forward positions, and this is the other thing that Luke was talking about, and it's why I started the season kind of 5-4-1, is I just think they really need to change up. I mean, we could probably do a whole pod on this at some point, but they really need to change up how they're pricing players, and possibly how they're, the positions and even the formations that they're allowing, because even the formation that Rich is playing there, the 4-4-2, that's not football anymore. It's dying, I think. And I'm not criticizing your formation selection here, but it's just, the fact that Salah's a midfielder, there just aren't, we've had these conversations in the past where they're like reclassified Aubameyang and people like that, but it doesn't fit modern football anymore. And that's why there's so much value in defense, because you've got wing backs. Generally my whole defense is almost always the wing backs, because they're just so powerful, and they're generally cheaper than some of the kind of mid-price midfielders as well. It's just crazy. They really need to change it up, I think, to keep it relevant.
Yeah, I don't think they'll do that. I think they'll just make them a bit more expensive, or quite possibly just about the same. Maybe Robertson and Trent proven assets will be 7.5, 8, but I don't know. Yeah,
I think Trent. I think they could go a bit mad. Trent could be 9 million. I think.
Yeah, they could do that, but they've never done it before, and they've done it in smaller increments.
Yeah, but they need to do something to make it more interesting, I think, because again, people are having the same teams, because you can't pick 3 good strikers anymore. It used to be, you could have Aguero, Kane, and Aubameyang, and whatever that could be your front line, and that was a way of playing. That isn't really a valid way of playing anymore, and hasn't been for like 3 seasons now.
Yeah, well, reducing the striker price would also do that. But I think adding in a wing back position, or I mean, it's not like you could promote them to midfield either, because they'd be even. Well, would they be more powerful? Maybe that's a bit of a ailing Dallas type thing last year when they moved into midfield.
No, they wouldn't. They wouldn't be more powerful because they wouldn't get the clean sheet points, would they? So
True. So they could do that, I suppose. But then you're going to flood the game with more midfielders, which isn't great unless they move then the Salahs and whatever to striker.
yeah,
I don't know. I just think any extra position, I think that's probably more work than we realise, and I think value is probably just going to change.
Yeah, and the thing is, when you've got that many players, even if there are 3 million players, whatever they do, they're going to alienate people. So there'll be people saying that you can't have a defender who's worth 9 million, or you can't make Kane a midfielder. But they are gonna alienate people whatever they do. So they'll have to be careful about it. But yeah, I'll just keep picking the wing backs because they're incredible value. That's probably one of the reasons why I've done well.
But you started with that, but have you gone religiously with wing backs between then? I feel like in the middle, I don't know, game weeks 10 to 20 you didn't have, or was that when, because James had that really rotten run?
Be interesting to see. I wonder how many times this season I've played 3 at the back. I bet you it's not very often at all.
Right.
I think if Ronaldo and Lukaku, because I remember when they came into the game, when Ronaldo came into the game, I was like, I've got to have Ronaldo. And it worked for about 2 weeks. But if it hadn't been for him, I think I would have stuck with 4-5-1, 5-4-1 for quite a while. But I had to carve up the team quite a lot to get Ronaldo in because he was obviously so expensive. But up until that point, I had Antonio and he was flying and he was 7.5 mil, I think. So I had highlighted Reece James pre-season. I was checking to see if he played the Champions League games, to see if he was completely trusted by Tuchel, because that was a really easy way of seeing that he was their first choice right back over Azpilicueta, because he played 90 minutes in both quarterfinals, semi-finals, and the final of the Champions League. So you're like, well, he's definitely the first choice, but he just wasn't fit when he came back. So I had Trent, Cancelo, and would have had Reece James as well, but yeah, he wasn't fit at the start. But yeah, I think I would have stuck with big at the back for much longer than I did. But yeah, I think I'm thinking of going massive at the back again for the running, because there's so much value there.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to chatting next week about, when we know a bit more after the international break and all the injuries, what the plan is, because there's quite a few different ways to go.
Yeah, indeed.
This next slide maybe won't spend too much time, because I thought we might be low on time, but we're definitely not. But just a few interesting things that have happened this week. The fact that Robertson's got COVID, classic, after Nick brought him in for a high point score, and then there's doubts over anyone else bringing him in. And also,
do you know what? I love doing this Podge League because I didn't even know that.
Beautiful.
So there you go.
That pain on my own.
I'm a casual. You shouldn't have told me that. You shouldn't have told me that. Actually, I would have just wandered into Gameweek 31 with him surprisingly benched.
But it is becoming a bit of an issue, COVID, more in the UK again, isn't it? So I do wonder if that is going to play a bit of a part before the end of the season.
Yeah, and despite the fact that the government kind of relaxing all the guidelines, they're not going to be able to play, are they? They might come back a bit faster, but they're not going to be allowed to play.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. The top right one was a game week 30 team that have actually scored you 0 points with 11 starters. Well, 11 started, so you'd think before the game week. Ericsson was also out, wasn't he? Martinelli, obviously Jimenez with a -2. Kilman was dropped. Rafinha was dropped. Ramsdale. So it was a tough week for someone free hit.
That is unbelievable. He's good, that Hindu monkey. I follow him on Twitter. He is good. That's mad. Again, like, imagine, Rich, if I'd clocked into your team and seen that was your team for this week, I'd have been like, wow, Rich's team looks good for this week. He's got 11 starters. You'd have got 0 points. So you must be feeling absolutely delighted with your Gameweek 30 score looking at that.
Yeah. I mean, compared to that, yeah.
That's hilarious.
And Rich, how do you feel that I think it's about 4,000 people were tuned into Andy Let's Talk SPL's YouTube channel on Friday night to hear about whether Rafinha was spotted on the coach or not, arriving at Molineux to play the Wolves game, because everyone was wondering if he had COVID or not, and there had been various rumours during the day as to whether he was on the coach or not and was actually going to play or not, and then it was finally unveiled that he wasn't at the ground. Does that make you sick?
4,000 people were listening to that, Rich.
That doesn't really surprise me that much, to be honest. A lot of nerds out there, aren't there?
I was listening to Planet FPL, and I was listening to James talk about fixtures and, double game week 36, 37, talking about a possible double game week for Chelsea in 35. And I just could imagine, I was smiling to myself because I was just imagining, I knew obviously we're hoping Rich was going to come on and talk to us on here. And I was just imagining Rich listening to James talk about fixtures in that way. And I don't think you could imagine anything more boring than that, Rich. Whereas I was absolutely enthralled.
You're there with a pen and paper, noting it all down, and also texting Rich
whilst driving at the same time.
I was thinking, like, when you don't know what, I don't know any of the terminology, and I don't, so I'm struggling a bit with you guys, let alone.
No, but that's a really important point, though, and I think that's one of the things that Andy Let's Talk FPL tries to do occasionally. Although again, he's mainly catering to his audience, but he does try and do the occasional video where he actually boils it down and explains it to people, because he obviously got such a huge audience now. He knows that some of them are going to be new. But it is quite a difficult thing to get into, because there are so many things that you just take for granted, and we've talked about certain things and taking a hit and rolling your transfer and all this sort of stuff. There are so many, and there are new things popping up all the time. I don't know whether you've noticed this, Shlee, but what's the recent one? There's expected minutes, obviously, which is, there's all these different expecteds that are coming up now. Expected COVID, expected minutes. And then there's a new one. There's like game state. Have you heard about this? What's the game state?
No.
And it basically means, like, what's the score in the game at the time, or has a team gone down to 10 men, or
Oh, right. Okay.
but there's like new ones popping up all the time, and I'm like, who is it who comes up with this stuff, and how does it get adopted? And it'll be literally like chance at a football stadium where somebody starts something and it takes off and everyone starts using it.
Right. This is on sort of Twitter sphere, or
yeah, Twitter, but generally, on pods as well, when you're listening to it, it's like a player being nailed. Like, is he nailed? And everyone, uses it, and it just starts to become part of the canon, or part of the vernacular again.
Sounds like rich material to me, Nick.
You just want to keep dropping that pun in. Solid pun.
Right, Rich,
Wow.
do you want to talk us through this slide?
Yeah, sure. So Barry Bannon.
Barry Bannon. That is a name.
Barry Bannon, I remember, but this would have been about 10 years ago. I absolutely was raving about him, saying he was, for Villa, and saying he's going to be the next Messi. This guy is incredible. Blah, 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 blah. And he never made it, really.
Schlee's desperately trying to think of a player whose initials are FH to go with Barry Bannon.
I initially thought it was a Villa player, and then I thought maybe you're talking about someone from secondary school. But okay, Rich said it was a Villa player.
No, he is a Villa player. He is a Villa player, but I just thought
he was a Villa player. He plays for Sheffield Wednesday now, I think.
Oh, does he?
Yeah, went over to Rangers for a bit, I think. Yeah.
But why does his name come to you? Sorry, is there something on the screen that's similar to that?
Because of BB.
Oh, right. Okay.
Come on, Schlee, keep up. Just because your brain reads it as bench boost without even the second thought, you've got to consider that it could mean Barry Bannon.
Right. So Nick, this is my and Rich, my thinking of chip usage for us. So Rich, am I right in saying you've got no chips left? So this probably is a bit even more irrelevant for you.
What? I've got no.
I think Rich has got chips left. So Rich, chips are obviously like free hit, bench boost, wildcard.
I know I've got none left.
Have you used all of them?
Yeah.
I think you went on a bit of a spree, didn't you?
I thought when I looked the other day, I thought you had some, but
no, I used my bench boost 3 weeks ago, maybe.
Yeah, how'd you get on?
Yeah, did well.
Okay. Week. Good.
I had Tony on the bench, who scored a hat trick.
Oh, lovely. Nice. Brilliant.
There you go. A bit of bench wankery. Putting Tony on your bench. Probably had like Broyer in your team and you got like 2 points. Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Nick and I have got free hit and bench boost left, and we'll maybe chat a little bit more on this next week, Nick. But this is the rough maths that I thought of why we should consider swapping them round from the initial plan. So I'll just quickly run through this. On the left, rate my team currently for game week 33, 67 points it would get. And then
so I feel the need to break all of this down for Rich. So Rate My Team is a tool on the Fantasy Football website that uses various metrics to come out with an expected or a predicted number of points for a player in a game week. So those numbers in green are like it's saying, so Martinelli, it expects he's going to get 5.88 points approximately. And so then it kind of, you put your team in, so you can use it to kind of say, right, if I swap Martinelli for Maddison, great, I'm going to get 1.2 more points that week. So it's a tool that you could use to kind of look at potential transfers. It allows you to look kind of week to week, so you could look at like the next 5 or 6 fixtures. So yeah, that's what we're looking at.
So you have to put in all your players manually.
No, you can have it read your team just from your.
You could pick who you should pick. You just put your players in, and then it tells you what their score is likely to be.
Yes, yeah. So you don't have to put them in manually. You can just put in your team number, and then it will pop up with that automatically. But to look into the future and make transfers, you have to do that manually.
Yeah.
And that's what I've done in the middle. So this is what I could do in game week 33 if I free hitted, and this is off. Who did I pinch this off? Someone on Twitter that I thought looked quite good. So this would be a dream team for 33, and that would be 86 points. And then we move into this blue bit, which is firstly the summary of that.
Hang on, so that's only gaining you 19 points then.
Yeah.
So that's a 19-point free hit, basically.
Correct. Yeah. So
and have you looked at 36 then? What you would get in 36 on that?
Yeah.
Oh, you have as well. Yeah, that's down the bottom. Okay.
So this is into this blue bit. So at the top, game week 33. My now 11 is 67, and I would have a bench of 5 because I've actually got 3 outfield blanks and Ramsdale on the bench. But my free hit would be 86. And then for game week 36, I haven't done the breakdown here, but you'll have to believe some of the maths I did. My 11 at the moment would score 54. I would have a bench of 9, but I think a free hit 11, and I pinched this off Praz that did that. He's been on Scout recently. He just threw up something that he thought would be good for 36, and that gets 117. Yeah. So then the bottom in pink is the maths of that. Our initial plan of doing on the left free hit 33, bench boost 36 gives a net of 28. But if we did it the other way around, it gives a net of 68.
Wow, that's pretty.
So it's not a small difference either. And if it was 10 or 20, I might be thinking, that's maybe a bit of crappy maths or something. But the fact it's 40 different. And someone else made a really good point. Kamsi on the Scout boards. Have you heard of them, Nick?
No, I haven't actually.
They were talking about in game week 36, you can't really, if you free hit, have Kane. He doesn't think, or she doesn't think, because the budget just doesn't work, because you need so many other mid to high price players, and they don't actually think Spurs' double is going to be that good. That would be very hard to have Kane. So holding Kane for a bench boost 36 might actually end up making the bench boost quite difficult.
Yeah. Well, so what's interesting then is, are you suggesting that you would you would use transfers to prepare for 33, then you would free hit in 36, and then maybe bench boost just in a week where your bench looks good?
No, I'm thinking of bench boosting in 33, and not all my transfers, but a lot of transfers now is preparing for 33. Obviously, the fact I've got 3 outfield blanks. Yeah.
See,
why are you talking about 33 and 36 of these double game weeks?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the thing about particularly 33, Rich, is that there are some players in 33 who blank. So they have no game. Like Villa don't have a game in 33. I mean, you know that because you know everything about Villa, but they don't have a game in 33. But there are teams who double. So if you make a transfer of say you took Coutinho out of your team and brought in, Martinelli, you're getting 2 additional fixtures. So even if Martinelli blanks in both games and just gets, just plays 60 minutes in both games, you're going to get 4 points more than you would have got from Coutinho, and it might cost you 4 points to make that transfer. So it's a much bigger benefit to make a transfer in that week. That's why I took that -16 in game week 29, because I was swapping players without, with one fixture for players with two. So it just means that the hit costs less immediately. So that's really. What does your bench boost look like though, Shlee, for 33? Because mine looks terrible.
Well, at the moment, it's what's on the left here with Aït-Nouri 0, Digne 0, Harrison 0, and I've only got Ramsdale. But I do have 2 doubling keepers, so it is viable in both weeks. I've got De Gea and Ramsdale. So
you would use transfers to just improve those zeros, right? Because that doesn't look like a great bench boost to me.
Agreed, but yeah, that's kind of what it's saying with this maths in the bottom right. The maths to get to 68 is 5 on a bench boost, which is obviously pretty useless at the moment. But then you add on 117 minus 54, which is a huge swing. So that's where you get the So it will be kind of all transfers to kind of improve 33, which isn't too hard because Newcastle have got a great double. So Cher and Fraser could come in for these low price options, and then I don't know, maybe a Leicester defender or something. We'll come to
Whereas you think this massively hands the advantage, as it should always do, but to people who've held their wild card this long, because if you could wild card in 34, 35 and get 15 double game weekers for 36, then and bench boost in 36, then you would expect your bench, that rate my team and any other metric would say, okay, well, 15 players, because that's the thing. Everyone's been looking at bench boosting in 36 just because it's, we've been hearing that it's going to be this massive double game week. So you would expect to be getting players on your bench who played twice, but it's looking like that's not going to be the case then, because if you're only going to get 9 points from your now bench in 36, that's not great, is it?
Correct. Yeah, and that is a bit swayed by, obviously I've got a lot more transfers between now and 36 because where I could improve my bench, but I'm just basing it on right now. So definitely some food for thought there, because I thought it was pretty clear and dry. Like you say, big bench, big double in 36, you should bench boost, but I'm thinking maybe not for us.
That's really interesting. But that is the one thing, because this is, you were talking earlier, Rich, about wanting to maybe talk about time, but there's some nights where I'll get into bed at 11 o'clock or whatever, and I'll be on my phone. I'll be on a website called Live FPL, which is where you can load in your current team by putting in your number, which you can find on the FPL website. I'll show you how to do that at some point if you're interested. And it loads up your current team, and then you can right, I'll pick my team for this week. Then you can click next game week, and it will skip you over to the next game week, and it has all the fixtures and everything else. And you'll be like, right, what team will I pick for next week, and what transfers will I make in that week? And the nice thing about that is that, the clever thing is that I can plan a strategy for bench boosting in 33 and free hitting in 36. And I can also plan one for the reverse of that and figure out which transfers I would make. And then I can say, right, which one do I think objectively of those plans is the best? And you may say, well, you're looking so far in advance, but if you come upon a plan that you think works really well, that influences your transfers this week. So you would make transfers to try and build towards that plan. And obviously things change and people get injured and everything else, but that's why those sorts of things are really useful. And I enjoy it. I used to play football management sims and different things like that. And now I don't have enough time to do those, but I do have time to spend an hour in bed just messing about on my phone with live FPL. So, but I imagine you just get into bed every night, Rich, and put on a bit of Kenny G and fall asleep.
I mean, these days I'm falling asleep on the sofa at 9:30. So
yeah, fair enough. I was actually falling asleep reading to my son, literally falling asleep whilst mid sentence, and then managed to perk myself up and come and do this with you guys. So. But yeah,
what we're looking at here then? We're looking at my team if I didn't make any changes.
Exactly. Yeah. So Nick likes the one particular site to do this, but this one does have some slightly better graphics. This is FPL.team, and yeah, exactly. It's your team for this week, next week, and the week after. As it stands at the moment, no transfers, and I, just because of the screen size, forced it to be 4-4-2 all the time. So I did bench Coutinho in 32. Don't kill me.
That's Rich's favourite formation. Yeah, solid.
And then just put in realistic-ish, I thought, captains and vice captains. But yeah, this is the sort of last bit we've got tonight, really, which is just looking ahead to what you might do, Rich, with no chips, 0.1 in the bank, and this team. What are your rough thoughts about what to do this coming week?
Well, I want to bring. Well, I've just seen who they've got. Oh no, I want to bring Son or Kane in, basically.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I'm saying your defence is lush, but yeah, you're lacking both of those big guns up top, aren't you?
But I don't know. I don't know. I have to be honest. I haven't thought about it, but I want to bring one of those two in because they. I mean, Kane. I want to bring Kane in.
It's going to be so difficult for you to bring Kane in, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you've got to get from who's your most expensive forward, Tony, and is he 6.6? I think 6.5, 6.6. So
Yeah.
you've got to find 6 million basically, or the best part of.
Yeah.
To get up to Kane. You don't want to sell Salah because nobody wants to sell Salah. So it's the difficulty is all your money is spread around different positions. You've got a team that would be good for a bench boost because you've got good value on your bench. I mean, look at your bench in 31, Zaha, Cody, King. But getting Kane's going to be really tough. If I were you, I would focus on Chelsea. I would look to bring in, because you've already got a big defense anyway. You could maybe lose Robertson, especially because if he's got COVID, you might risk him for 31 against Watford. If he even is back, because they've got such a good deputy for him in Tsimikas. You could go Robertson to Reece James. There's sometimes you have to look at your team and think it's so difficult to get there. I'm going to completely destroy my team to get there, and you just have to ignore it and you just have to let it go by. But you could go Coutinho to Havertz without too much trouble, and you could go Robertson to Reece James, because there's people saying that Chelsea are going to have a double in 30. Have they got a double in 33? No, they haven't on here. Just got Arsenal, but they've got they've got several fixtures to rearrange. They're going to have several doubles by the end of the season, and they've got brilliant fixtures. The only caveat is that they're obviously still in the Champions League, and people like Havertz might be rested for some of the league fixtures before the Champions League games. But
don't I want to bring in more players that are going to have a double game week?
Yeah, and I mean Chelsea will, but I mean, you mean for 33? Yeah, because you haven't got any chips.
33. That's what I mean. Yeah.
But this is the challenge, because you could bring in, for example, Man United have got a decent double in 33. I mean, have they got Norwich and Liverpool actually?
Yeah.
Is that their 33 double? Yeah. So obviously Liverpool's not great, but they're going to get 2 points. But they could do something. But their fixtures aren't great the rest of the games, and obviously United aren't as good as Chelsea anyway. So although actually they don't look too bad on here, but they've also got Arsenal and then they've got Chelsea in 37. So the challenge for you, Rich, because you haven't got any chips left, is you need to almost think, right, what is my strategy? And you almost need to not stick to it, but you need to have a good strategy, because you can't just I'm going to free hit in 33 to kind of get loads of doublers kind of thing. So what do you think, Shlee?
I was thinking Coutinho and someone to Son, and the other someone will be a downgrade.
It's quite a big downgrade though, isn't it? Because I think, what's Coutinho? Is he 7.5, 7.6, 7.7, something like that now?
Yeah, true. The math doesn't really work, does it?
I think is his Son over 11 now? Is he 10.9?
So is it Cancelo maybe for someone, and then if I really wanted to bring Son in,
it'd have to be from someone pretty expensive. True, maybe the math doesn't work, and yeah, with 1 free that would be for a hit, so it's not ideal. Maybe someone like Havertz is good.
Cancelo's so dangerous to take out at any point, isn't he?
Agreed. Yeah. I mean, they're looking at your bench in the next few weeks. Like, King is on it quite a bit. Cody's on it quite a bit. Zaha's in and out. Coutinho. So I think those are the places you can swap without too much danger and upgrade your 11. And yeah, you haven't got many doublers for 33.
Thing is, if Rob, this is the other reason, Rich, why information is so important. Because if you, let's say because one of the things that happens shortly before, and again, it almost feels like this has been designed for FPL, but it must have been going on for years and years and years, is that all the managers on like the day before the games, they have to give press conferences to the press, obviously. So in the you'll hear from Klopp, there are websites where they break down exactly what the managers have said, and people that do YouTube videos about it. But if Klopp comes out before that Watford game and says, "Yeah, Robertson's not back for it," then you're like, right, well, Robertson is a very expensive defender. He's not playing Watford this plum fixture because they're just going to put Tsimikas in because he's a very good player as well. And then he's got Liverpool. So, then he's got City. So that could be an opportunity where you think, right, well, I can take Robertson out without too much fear of him suddenly going absolutely bananas, because you'd expect City to score in that game. I mean, again, it could be a 0-0, but the chances are that City are going to score. So I just think Robertson to Reece James looks like quite an easy move, but obviously you have to wait to find out whether Klopp's going to tell you, yay or nay, Robertson is either out or not.
So if Robertson's in, what would you suggest?
If he is in,
I'd be tempted to roll them maybe. I'd probably play Zaha over Coutinho, and then you've got more power next week to change it around, because your team actually this week is good. You've got the captaincy covered. Okay, some people are going to captain Kane or Son at home to Newcastle, but you've got Kulu, you've got Doherty. Salah's a good captain, assuming you just need to keep an eye as well if there's any leaks for the fact he's coming back from his big Egypt game. They're playing Senegal and Mane, aren't they? So there's a big qualifier or something there, I think.
Yeah.
But assuming that's okay, maybe roll, because that defence is good. Okay, you're not doubling up with anybody, but you've got all the bases covered there. You know, from the big, well, it's actually the perfect sort of 5 defence, isn't it? You wouldn't really want to cover anyone else.
No. Interesting that you'd play Tony Chelsea away over like even Cody at home to Villa.
Yeah, that's true actually. I'm not sure why I did that.
But you know, these are the calls, because Tony could get a penalty or whatever, and Cody could just lose his clean sheet, and then that's it. But I'd probably bank on maybe going for Cody. But it's so difficult when you've used your chips and you haven't got a lot of money to play with. I think Schlee's right. You might put yourself in a much stronger position just by rolling the transfer. But if Robertson's definitely out, I would look at bringing in Chelsea. I would look at bringing in Reece James for Robertson. But again, you need to find out whether Reece James is fit as well.
Yeah, exactly. That's a risky in as well as a risky out. And like
True.
you say, Chelsea in Europe, that would be quite tricky. I'd be tempted maybe to go, well, I was going to say right down to a share or a Fafana or someone Leicester, because they've got some good doubles coming, but their fixtures this week aren't that great actually, so hence why rolling. And like you say, you could play Cody instead.
Yeah.
Yeah,
roll and play one might be the play. Because even Arsenal, even Zaha, I mean, Zaha I think he quite likes playing Arsenal. He often does quite well against them. So, and it's a home game, and Zaha generally does really well towards the end of the season, because he's often almost like he's playing for his move. But so if Robertson doesn't play and you still roll, you'd be getting Zaha off the bench. So that's not horrendous.
I mean, this goes back as well to what I was talking about earlier about a Villa bias, because Schlee, you just said about you'd maybe bring Coutinho out. I'm like, we're playing Wolves. Coutinho's Coutinho, well, Villa will be up for it because we're playing Wolves. I'm not dropping Coutinho, but from an FPL point of view, it might be a sensible choice.
Yeah, no, that's true. Yeah, Derby, that could be a big one. He was terrible against Arsenal, apparently.
Which is why he couldn't get into the game,
Yeah, and Wolves' defense is good. And I'd almost look at the Villa Wolves game and think Wolves will be even tighter than they have been, because they just won't want to lose that game.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and obviously they're above Villa, so I can imagine them just keeping it super tight. I don't think there'll be much. I think that could be a 0-0 quite easily. But yeah,
just looking at who captains as well. Like 32 captain is really tricky, because City have got Liverpool, so that takes out quite a lot of candidates. So the fact I've got Rudiger as your captain maybe isn't too much of a worry. But initially I looked at it and thought, oh, you're not covering the right captain there. But that week is actually quite tough. But then I was just looking at who would be the best captain 33, and do you have them? It's not that obvious either. What do you think? They like maybe
it's Man United, isn't it?
Maybe.
I think it is probably Man United.
Yeah,
it's difficult. But I need to look at this for my own team. I need to get back into being the team command for the next ahead of the next deadline. But we've still got loads of time, because it's international break now, and the game. I think the deadline is it a Friday deadline or is it Saturday?
Not sure.
but it's the weekend after next. He's still got a lot of time, and it's good not to look at it, because this is not the time to be making the early transfers that I used to like making so much.
Yeah. So sorry, Rich, it's not quite as concrete. Were you coming on hoping just to write the correct moves down and that's it?
Give me all the secrets, and yeah, I'll win my mini leagues.
I'll tell you what, this is interesting, Shlee. If you could give Rich some like 2 or 3 things that are not too much time, like maybe, I don't know, 10 minutes a day, say, that you think would help him the most.
10 minutes a week.
10 minutes a week that you think would help him the most in winning his mini leagues, what would you suggest?
Well, deadlines I think is the biggest one, but that sounds like you're not failing on that one, Rich. You know when the deadlines are and you don't miss any. Is that fair? I think that's the biggest one.
Yeah, I don't think I've missed any this season. Maybe one. I don't know, but yeah.
And then I think the next one is, given the volatility to the end of the season, is knowing when the doubles are and the cancellations, and that the only way to do that is to find an updated fixture ticker that is updated regularly, or go on Twitter and follow the right people so that you know when the fixtures are rearranged, because there's going to be quite a few in Gameweek 36 and 37. They're going to be big doubles, but they might not fall into all of those weeks. Some might go into 34 or 35. So you knowing that they're in other weeks that maybe other people don't could be quite a powerful benefit.
So you just quickly bring up that ticker again, Shlee. I know you're kind of on the final slide, but if you bring up the ticker just to show Rich what we mean, because I listen to podcasts where they'll talk about fixtures and possible fixtures and rearrangements and everything else. Whereas that, listening to a podcast can take, an hour or 2, like depending on how long the podcast is, right? But if you had access to something like this, and obviously Shlee can send you something like this so that you can refer to it before you make transfers, but you could focus on certain teams that you're interested in and just look at their stuff, and you could spend as much or as little time as you wanted looking at this before you made a transfer, and you still could just do it on the day before the deadline, or in a few hours before the deadline. But you could just use something like this to say, right, am I getting in a Chelsea player before they blank, or am I getting in a player, am I getting in a player a single game weeker when I could be getting in a double game weeker? So and these kind of things, when you first look at them, you're like, what am I looking at? This is a mess. But it does actually, the more you look at it, the more you see, blue is good fixtures, red is difficult fixtures. You kind of see the game weeks running across the top, and Shlee's obviously got his players, or maybe players he's interested in, down the left-hand side, and those sorts of things are super useful. I'd say even simpler than that is, when you're making a transfer, don't just look down the page on the fantasy football website and see the fixtures that week. Go into the player that you might want to buy or the player that you might want to take out and look at the fixtures, because they also have, their next fixture. You can see all their fixtures at the end of the season, but you could look at their next 5 fixtures, say, and just look at the next 5 and say, right, I like the next 5 of, Martinelli, so I'm going to bring him in, kind of thing, and just that sort of stuff. Because when you make a transfer, every transfer really costs you 4 points. Even the free ones technically cost you 4 points, because it means you can't make a different transfer, or if you make another one, it's going to cost you 4. So every time you make a transfer, you should be trying to look at the next 5 or 6 game weeks, not just the immediate next game week.
What was that website where it kind of projected what you might do, what points you might get?
So that's Fantasy Football Scout, but in order to get access to that tool, you have to pay a subscription fee for the for a season.
Oh, right. And
I think it's like 15 quid or 20 quid or something like that for the season. And again, if you're going to use it loads, it's worth it. But if you're not, it's definitely not worth it. So
no.
But as I say, like live FPL is totally free, and that's a really good way of it. Won't give you estimated points, because again, if you're good at predicting and you understand football, and even if you just watch Villa games, you will be watching the teams that play against Villa and everything else. People call that the eye test, but you will have an idea as to how a player is going to do in certain games, and all that ticker is doing, all that rate my team or that prediction tool is doing, is saying what it thinks the points are going to be for that player. So you can do that in your own head in a way. And it's a good idea to take Coutinho out against Wolves and bring in, Ronaldo against Norwich. Like that, those sorts of things are are obvious, right? You don't need a ticker to tell you that Ronaldo might get 12 points against Norwich, whereas Coutinho might get 5 or 6 against Wolves.
Yeah, I'm with you on the Ronaldo one.
Coutinho is not leaving that team, Nick.
No, he's not. He's not.
No.
I haven't convinced him. But yeah, we probably should end it there. But Rich, thank you so much for coming on. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you on. And sorry that the video wasn't great, but we're still kind of struggling with bandwidth and tech and stuff like that. But yeah, thank you so much. It was great.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Big fan of the pod.
I'm going to get you a t-shirt printed.
Yeah, thanks very much for coming on, Rich. Did you find it useful? Have you written down any tips?
I haven't, because I don't have a pen, but I've got it. I've got it mentally. Yeah, I've definitely. Honestly, I've learned quite a bit there. So hopefully I won't be 1.6 million next season.
Happy days.
Good stuff. We'll have to get you. We'll have to get you back on the pod. Maybe we'll get you back on at the start of next season when we're trying to pick our drafts for the start of next season.
Look forward to it.
Awesome. All right. Thanks so much, mate.
All right. See you guys.
Thanks, everybody. Yeah, please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. And if you haven't, please join our mini league. I'll just pop back to that slide at the top because I can't remember the code. 0NPH60. Yeah, join up and we'll see if anyone can beat Nick before the end of the season. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.